Commission being conducted remotely, consistent with an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. The new law authorizes all members of a public body to continue participating in meetings remotely. The open meeting law's requirement that a quorum of the body and the chair be physically present at the meeting location remains suspended. For this meeting, the commission is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's web meeting calendar and the Conservation Commission agenda identifying how the public may join. Additionally, the meeting is being broadcast by HCAM. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Supporting materials that have been provided to members of the commission for this meeting are available on the town's website. The meeting will feature public comment after commission members and staff have discussed each project application on the agenda. The chair will open the discussion to public comment. Members of the public who wish to speak are asked to identify the name and address. 3 minutes will be afforded for each public comment. Each vote taken in this meeting will also be conducted via roll call vote of the members. I'll now confirm which commission members are present. Let some people into the meeting here.
Yeah, one of them is me, Jeff, on my other.
Okay, yeah. So Melissa,
Here.
Jim,
Yeah.
Ted,
Ted is present.
Ed,
Here.
Janine.
Here.
I don't think Carrie has joined yet. And this is Jeff Barnes. And I'll confirm staff that are present. Kim,
Present.
Anna,
Present.
and Joe.
Present.
All right. Okay, hold on a second here. Something funky's going on with the. Okay. All right, so I just want to let folks on the call know that we've had a number of continuations tonight. So the mass laborers training has continued to the 28th. The 2 trails hearings have continued to the 28th, and the West Main, Zero Elm and Zero West Main application or continued hearing has been requested to the 28th. So let's jump
Through the
in.
chair,
Yes, Anna.
can we
Go ahead.
just clarify? So the laborers that was listed under a continued hearing, that application for the pond dredging was actually withdrawn. You will be discussing laborers' request for reconsideration later in the meeting.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you, Anna, for
Thank
that
you.
clarification. Yeah. Okay. So documents for review, we have a negative determination for Dina 91 Saddle Hill Road, and we have an order of condition issued for 7 Wayland Road. If I can get a motion to have Kim sign both of those documents on behalf of the members present.
So moved.
This is Ed, so moved.
All right, Jim made the motion. Ed, you want a second?
I'll second.
And we'll do the roll call vote. Melissa,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Ed,
Ted is not.
Ed,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. And Carrie's coming in right now, Anna. Okay, no draft minutes for review tonight, which takes us to the exemption request for the DCR at Whitehall State Park.
The chair?
Yes, Kim, go ahead. If you want to give us a
Yeah.
quick overview, please.
Sure, I can give a brief introduction. So the DCR via the Student Conservation Association project. I'm sorry, it's the SCA project with assistance from the DCR. They are proposing a pedestrian footbridge to span a small section of Rocky Stream area that you see on the photo. The footbridge is located kind of in the south portion of Whitehall. I believe it's in association with Tim's Trail, but that can be clarified. It's a proposed 32-foot long by 6-foot wide wooden style bridge, and it will span the bank full width.
Okay. I think it's pretty straightforward. No concerns on your end, Kim?
Nope, no concerns.
Okay.
Through the chair, this is Ed.
Yes, Ed, go
One
ahead.
who has navigated that crossing a time or two, I can tell you it's quite a challenge to not really get wet.
Yeah, it looks like a good project. I think that'll definitely make it more accessible to folks who can't hop over rocks for sure. Okay,
Folks who don't
comment.
wanna.
Through the
Well,
chair, you
well-
do have a representative from DCR on the call too, if you guys have any questions for Dylan.
Oh, okay, Dylan, did you want to jump in here?
Yeah, sure. Hi, so this is Dylan Shine. I'm the lead supervisor at Hopkinton State Park. We also take care of Whitehall. Yeah, this was an area of concern, especially when it's really wet or really icy. The rocks in the photo there, you can see a little ice there, but if the rocks are wet and slippery, it's pretty difficult to get over. People like to put a plank across it anyway. There is one a little bit downstream. So if you were looking at the photograph, it's to the left. So people are already trying to make their own crossing. So that's a big reason why we want to, make it safer. And we also had a request from some abutters and also local folks that they want to be able to have their horses go through this trail. And that's really difficult without having the crossing.
Yeah, for sure. Now, how did you guys get the student conservation group to help you out with this?
So every year we're able to submit project proposals to the SCA. They have an open call. We had them as recently as summer 2021. They actually made another crossing just a little bit further down on the trail.
Okay.
I personally worked with them at different parks, Hopkinton, Ashland, and Whitehall over the years. And yeah, they're familiar with us. It helps that we give them a facility. So we let them get into the bathrooms at Hopkinton State Park. What they do is they'll camp out at Hopkinton and they have a van that will take them to whatever the work location is. So we have a long history with SCA.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, it'd be nice if we could get them to work on some more projects around Hopkinton, for sure. Okay, so let me open up to questions, comments from the commission members.
I have
No
a quick
questions?
question.
Just thank you.
I just have a logistics question, just out of curiosity. How are you gonna get around those rocks? Are you going like over them or?
Yeah, so
You're not taking them out, are you?
like what's in the picture, the sills or any footings that are on the bridge are not going to be connected to the water themselves. The sills are going to be put in on either bank. Some of the weight might be distributed amongst the large rocks that you see sticking up. But if you look in that photograph there, where on the far bank, there's a dead tree that's, been cut, that's where one footing will be. And the other one will most likely be closer to the subject of the photo, like by the rock that's on the front there. So it's going to rest on top, so you can go right over.
Gotcha.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the commission? Questions or comments from the public? All right, and this is an exemption request, so we don't have to vote on it. So great, thank you, Shane. Appreciate the Dylan's. Appreciate the update.
Of course.
All right, good luck.
Thank you so much.
Okay, have a good evening. Okay, what time do we have? 7:10. Okay, so the laborers training, 37 East Street. As you folks saw in Kim's
Through the chair.
email, a request for reconsideration was submitted by the applicant. So first off, did everyone on the commission get a chance to review that, take a look at it?
Yes, Jim did.
Okay. So we can't, since we closed the hearing at the last meeting, we don't have the ability to really discuss this. But I just wanted to make a couple points, and then I'll hand it off to Kim, and she can give us her thoughts on it as well. So the applicant isn't proposing any mitigation or changes to the application. So they're simply asking us for a request for consideration based on the site, the proposed site work that was originally proposed. And then secondly, as you may have seen at the end of the application, there was a forest cutting plan through the DCR that was provided with the request for reconsideration as a appendix. So, they feel that, and I guess I can just read this, that'd probably be easiest. So as grounds for this request, the applicant states that it disagrees with the findings regarding compliance with performance standards and sufficient information submitted by the applicant to describe the site, the work, or the effects of the work on the interests identified in the bylaw. Then there's a little bit of more narrative that goes on. Then secondly, in the second or third paragraph, it says, additionally, the applicant disputes that section D2A, findings under Town of Hopkinton Wetlands Bylaw, that the proposed work cannot be conditioned to meet the standards set forth in a municipal ordinance or bylaw, specifically the Town of Hopkinton Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 206. So in my mind, it was really came down to kind of the alternatives analysis, and denial under the bylaw is really because it didn't contemplate, going down East Main Street and entering the property, further down without the disturbance of buffer zone. So Kim, did you have anything else to add to that?
I don't. I think you covered it. In my review of it, it appeared that the applicant is asking the commission to reconsider their decision, but not providing any additional new information.
Okay, thank you, Kim. So it comes down to either a vote to reopen the hearing, or alternatively, a vote to issue a final decision. So, if there's a motion to either vote to reopen the hearing or a motion to issue the final decision, I'll take that now, please.
Jeff, can I just ask, we need both, don't we? We need a motion to reopen and a motion to affirm our, if that's denied, then a motion to affirm our decision. We need two votes.
The chair?
Yes, Kim.
I don't think so. I think it's just you're going to reconsider or not.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well, Jim.
Okay, I'm just wondering, how do we get to the second option if we don't do the first option?
You mean the
So
open hearing?
Yeah, I don't know, how do we get to issue a final decision if we don't vote to not reopen?
If you vote to not reopen, your decision becomes final.
Okay, so I guess I will make a motion to to issue the final decision. Is that an appropriate motion?
I think so. Yep. Kim, do you agree?
Yeah, I would say maybe just deny the request for reconsideration and issue the final decision.
All right, so that's what I was thinking. I'll change that motion to be what Kim just said, to vote to reopen or not reopen the hearing.
To deny the reopen and to issue the final decision? Jim?
Correct.
Okay, and is there a second, please?
This is Ted. I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor? And I'll do the roll call vote. Melissa?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
Janine?
Aye.
Ted?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Jim?
All right,
And Jeff is an aye. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
so now we've just affirmed our final decision.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's move along to the new hearings. This is Roland, 27 Woody Island Road, replacement of a retaining wall. And I just need to read this. Quickly, just bear with me for a second. Hopkinton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, March 14th, 2023 at 7:00 PM, virtually online, to hear all persons interested in a notice of intent filed by Stephen Rowland to construct a replacement retaining wall. The location is 27 Woody Island Road, Assessors Map L36, Block 15, Lot 0. Okay. Do we have a representative for the applicant on the call?
Yes, this is Dave Marquardon. With me is Steve Rowland, owner and applicant, and Joe Diana, who's going to be doing the work. This is 27 Woody Island Road, very small property. The bottom of the page is the lake. The top of the page, which doesn't show it, is Woody Island Road. Steve has about 33 feet of frontage. The lot is only about 4,000 square feet. So it's about 60 at the lake wide, 33 at the street, and about 95, 87 along the sides. The house is situated, as you see. We have a deck between the house and the lake. We have 3 existing retaining walls. The one that we're talking about tonight is an existing wall right at the water. It's in disrepair. It's a multi-level timber wall. It's 49 feet long. The new wall, which will be stone masonry, is exactly the same length at 49 feet. The bottom face of the wall will match the existing timber wall. There we go. So that wall is bowing out, but is essentially vertical. Our new wall will taper back away from the water towards the dwelling. We have no wetlands on our property. We have 2 wetlands on the other side of the property, adjacent to us on house number 29. You see that we have a little vegetation. We have 2 trees, kind of a twin or a double, and a small little pine tree. And then on the other side, on the left-hand side of the lot, as you look at it from the street, we have another oak tree. So back to that other photo, Kimberly, please, or Anna. Yep, right there. So we had done our field work on January 25th. And we have, I know we have some loose items that Joe would like us to address. The low water is 21 feet out from this existing retaining wall. On our plan, the existing dock is shown And we're a couple feet on the lake side of the dock with low water. I can easily add that to our plan. And our proposed erosion is about 6.5 off of the retaining wall. We're intending to do this not this year, but late fall, early winter next year at low water. So back to the site constraints a little bit. The house is sort of pictured on the right-hand side of the lot as you look at it from the street. If you were to walk in from the street, we have a single driveway that goes to about the front of the house. And then along the house is a level walkway to a set of stairs that goes down to this retaining wall. Our activity and all our access to the lot, there's a fence on the right, is on that driveway. So we intend to construct this retaining wall by hand. We're going to take out these timbers, bring them up the stairs and take them out through the driveway, just as we're going to bring the new rock in. We're not looking to do any machinery, and all access will be through the driveway. Okay? Those two retaining walls by the canoe are not in this proposal. It's just the one that's down against the lake that you saw with this picture. So we're right there, please. Our wall starts on the left side of that picture, going more to the left. That staircase going up to the wooden staircase going back up to the street. The one to the right, that little timber one with the cement cinder block, and the wall to the right is not being addressed. That's not going to be considered. Just to the wall to the left of that picture, going left towards the double trees. That tree, those trees and vegetation are going to remain. We're not going to touch those trees. So the intent is that we're going to put this new wall, and we have some variables that we don't know about. The bottom of the wall, the proposed wall, is going to match the existing wall. We don't know the height of the wall. The wall right now is a multi-level, and it's about 4.3 high. Our new wall is going to be 3.3 high. Like I said, made out of stone. No weep holes. And the intent is, like I said, to put the bottom of the wall, the new wall, at the same elevation as the old wall. So we drew a detail, not knowing what we were going to find. What we don't want this wall to do is to sit on sand. We don't want this wall to fall over and have to address this. Steve purchased the property back in 2000. The dock and the walls are what they were back in 2000. So you can see that the walls are the trees are tipping, but we have assurances from Joe that we can do this wall, build this new wall without touching those trees. So we're going to take out the timber, bring it up to the driveway, and then construct a new one, and then backfill as we go. In between, we call retaining wall number 1 down by the water. Say about 8 feet back from that is what we call timber wall number 2. In between timber wall number 1 and number 2, the land is lower between the wall. It's below the top of the wall. So any surplus dirt that we have that we have to take out is going to go right in that landscaped area. Exactly, right in there. More towards the right of the pointer, towards the stairs, to keep the vegetation in place. So right now, that's below the grade, below the existing grade of the wall. So we feel that we can construct all this with if you will, a little latitude to put the wall right back in the same spot and then at the same height of the bottom. And that's the variable that we don't know about. I think there's been a lot of discussion about how much are we going to fill, how much are we not going to fill. Our intention is to make it simple, is to keep the wall right where it is, elevation-wise, and a little shorter, not as tall. Joe brought up a couple comments about the flood. He is in fact correct. There is no flood, technically a flood elevation with the lake. It's kind of graphically with the lake. We have on the detail, we have an elevation of the spillway at the end of Maspinock towards Milford. And we have indicated that on our plan. And we also sort of verified it with what we determine as the mean annual high water, and with kind of the same number for a couple of inches. I do know that on past projects walking out onto the dam, that it's not uncommon for the water level to be above the dam a couple of inches to a few inches almost year round until we have a drought. So I feel comfortable in those numbers. I think that's the basics of it.
Okay. Thank you for the overview, Mr. Marquardt. Joe, did you want to go through your comments?
Sure. I think a number of them were addressed.
Yep.
So let's go through some of those. As far as resource areas, there is no BBW on the site. The flags that are shown on the adjacent lot are actually the bank flags, and the stone masonry wall that is shown on the other side of the lot is also functions as bank. The retaining wall is actually inland bank. It functions as inland bank on the property. So there is that resource area present. And the work will be obviously by necessity in that resource area.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around how those trees and the vegetation are not going to be impacted by the proposed wall. It looks like the base of the proposed wall is going to be about 2 feet wide, which is, at least half of that first terrace. And if, any soils coming out of there, the roots in there could easily be damaged. I guess it's just, I'm not real clear on how that's going to happen without damaging those trees. Also, just note quickly that there are, I believe there's 4 retaining walls behind the house, not 3, as was mentioned. Let's see. Was addressed that the mean high water line, the mean high water line, mean annual low water line, I'm sorry, was addressed and will be added, and it sounds like that's well away from the wall, so there should be no issue about working in land underwater, but all the work would be on the bank. As far as the flood zone, the elevations that are provided based on the water elevation at the dam would be like a mean annual high water line. It wouldn't necessarily be the flood line. I think at least there should be at least a reference of the flood map on the site plans. As was noted, the bottom elevation of the wall is not known. And that probably should be determined before the work starts, at least to the extent that they can, to avoid any last minute changes and that might be required for wall design. It was mentioned, I think, just now that there would be weep holes in the proposed wall. I didn't necessarily see that on the site plan. I had a question on how that would be accomplished. I had a number of inconsistencies or missing information on some of the forms. I don't know that I need to get into all those.
No, we don't need to get into those.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Mr. Marquardt, there were no weep holes, I thought I heard you say.
That is correct. There are no weep holes proposed. That's correct.
Okay,
and to the width of the wall, our intention is to build 24 inches wide maximum. But where necessary to near those trees, we're going to narrow up the thickness of the wall to ensure that we don't damage those trees. So we're going to be less around those trees and more as we get further away from the trees. We just don't know what's there, but our intention is not to disturb those trees and the structure, the root structure.
What
Yeah, I
about?
would-
Oh,
sorry, go ahead,
Yeah.
Joe.
Uh,
No, go ahead, Joe.
Curious as about the other vegetation and whether or not there'd be any replanting or landscaping in that area. And just a couple other quick notes. Since the work is in a resource area, I think a waiver request is probably required and should be submitted. Obviously, there's no option for not doing the work out of a resource area. And also just a question on the possible need for Chapter 91 license for the structure being on a great pond. And the mean annual high water line is along the structure. And it would appear that a Chapter 91 license would therefore be required for the work.
For the dock, you mean?
Not for the wall.
Oh, for the wall?
For the wall, yeah. And the question, as has come up before, is whether or not there's a Chapter 91 license for the dock also, but for the wall, because its work would be occurring below the mean annual high water line of the lake, it would appear that a Chapter 91 license would be required.
Okay, so I think we need to look into that, Mr. Marquardt.
Okay.
So I think, I just have one other question, kind of comment, then I'll open up to the other commission members. So when you're doing the wall, are you planning on doing, like, removing a 10-foot section and then doing the stone piece, then removing another 10-foot section and doing the stone? Or are you planning on going in, removing all the wood timber, leaving that bank exposed, and then coming in and doing the stone?
The intent, I think, is to remove half the wall to get the base. Let's just, if we left the right-hand side as we look at the page, if we left the right-hand side and took out the wall to the left, going to remove all the wall to the left and probably start the base stone on the left. And then immediately come back over to the right and take out the timber and then install the base. So we're going to install the base and then work up. So there'll be a short interruption, if you will. The intent is to remove half the wall to get the base set on the left. And then once the base is set, we're going to remove the wall on the right and then go right to the base. So as we build a wall, we're going to go up the wall, the entire length of the wall.
Okay. Okay, I think that makes sense. I think it would be prudent, to do something like that rather than removing all of the timber and then having the bank exposed,
Right.
and then if you have a rain event or something like
Right.
that, you could
Yep.
run into issues.
Yep.
So, okay, all right, that sounds good. I'll open up to comments from the other commission members.
Through the chair.
Yes, Kim.
Dave, how long do you anticipate the actual wall construction will take from the time the old timber wall comes down to the time the new wall is up?
No, we put it in that letter. I think we said no more than 2 months total.
So do you have any ideas for temporarily stabilizing the bank? Just in case, or?
Well, we're gonna, anything, the bank, the surplus, as we stated, we're gonna put up in between above the wall number 1 and towards number 2. We haven't given any consideration. We could give some consideration to that. I know that in the picture that Joe took, you can see that the stone is there. So the idea is that once that wall comes down and that stone, if you will, sort of falls in, You can see the wall, the stone where the broken timbers are there. So we think that once we take that wall out, and that's why we want to sort of take off the left side first and leave the right by the canoes. And then, but like I said, do the wall in its entirety together. But we think that the hope is that once all the wall comes down and then that stone falls, the bank is going to stay in place.
Yeah, because it looks like in front of the tree farther down the picture where that's kind of pushing out the timbers. It looks like there's a bunch of, crushed rock below that's been,
Down by the trees?
yeah. Like,
Yeah,
where the
I
arrow
didn't-
would- yeah,
Yeah, I didn't see much of a bulge there, to be honest with you.
okay,
The thing we need to remember is obviously we're doing this in the cold season. And obviously the frost will help hold this in place as well.
okay. Yeah, I think to Kim's point, you just need to consider, bank stabilization.
Mhm.
So I don't know if there's something to think about, because we don't want to remove the timbers and then have the entire thing collapse and the tree fall down into the lake. And then that we're gonna have a series, of other, problems, and you have to come back before the commission. So I would just give that some thought.
Yep.
Through the chair.
Yes, Kim.
Second question. This one's for both the homeowner and the commission. I guess I would just pose the question of, do we think saving these two trees in this instance is the most net beneficial? Just because for the stability of the wall in the long run, number one, and number two, I wonder if instead it might be more beneficial for water quality or to have, specified planting small shrubs or herbaceous items in these kind of planting tiers that would provide additional water quality versus kind of the bare ground that's being shown in these photos. I know that, the commission has had an emphasis on having a buffer zone be established on the banks of the lake and other lake properties. Food for thought.
Keep the trees. I was talking about keep the trees.
The big trees, so, yeah, yes.
Steve is here and his preference is to keep the trees.
They are, old, tilting, but if
You want to talk?
the trees, because they're near the shore, tilt a little bit. But yeah, if we can save them, I'd like to save them.
But to her point, we can plant in between if that will help with water.
Mhm.
I mean, if we,
The preference, Steve's preference is to leave the trees.
Okay. I guess, I would just say, if there is an issue where the tree's root system is damaged or it collapses
Yep.
during the the wall installation or removal and installation, then we're gonna have to consider, other plantings, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay. Kim, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Can I just mention something, Jeff?
sure. Go ahead, Melissa.
One thing maybe to consider or to think about in the stabilization, I don't know if there's any roof drains or any discharges that could be temporarily redirected, or just consider that during construction to basically divert water away from the construction area as a preventative measure.
do I have any announcements? No.
Gutters and downspouts.
On the left side of the building, there's one gutter that goes into the wall.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll take a peek at that as well when we go out there to see if there's anything that we could do for that. Yeah. I think we have one downspout on the left corner that we could, in the left rear, as you look at it, that we'll take a peek at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any final comments?
And
Any
then I would
comment?
just agree with Kim that any type of open area after construction should be, we should just make sure it's stabilized with vegetation,
Mhm.
not lawn, but
Mhm.
vegetation, natural vegetation.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Okay, any comments from the public? Okay, if I can get so we got a few things to kind of clean up here, Mr. Marquardt.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
One other comment.
Sure.
I think we will go down there and see if we can determine the elevation of the bottom of the wall today, existing wall, so that we can come back with some definitive numbers. If possible, we'll just dig a little hole right against the wall there and find out where we're at.
Yeah, that would be helpful because it may only be, 6 inches below grade or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe a foot at the most, I would think, but that would be helpful to know.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, there's a few things that we need to kind of clean up. So we'll continue this out to the 28th. Is that okay? Mr. Marquardt? That's
We'll
the
go
next
2 weeks
meeting
after that,
is April 11th.
April 11th.
So we'll continue this out to April 11th. If I can get a motion, please.
I'll make that motion.
And a second,
Second, Janine.
and we'll do the roll call. Melissa,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Jim,
All right.
and I'm an aye. Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Marquardt.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So, let me see. Let me just hold on a second here. Kim. Mr. Connors, are you on the call? He came in, he must have dropped off. Okay. Okay, Legacy Farms Road North and South mitigation. Kim, do you want to kind of give us a quick overview as to where we're at, please?
Sure, I can give it a try. So this is the Legacy Farms, the actual road project from way back when. There was a pretty substantial mitigation component associated with the construction of Legacy Farms Road. And the applicant is looking to, touch base with the commission about the status of the mitigation areas in consideration of moving towards a certificate of compliance. We did take a look at this a few meetings back briefly, and we discussed with Goddard, and they provided this wonderful PowerPoint presentation. So there's a handful of wetland mitigation areas. I think there's 6, and they were intended to mitigate for different types of impacts. So some of them were BVW, some are banks, some are land underwater. And what ended up happening is that some of these areas were successfully constructed. Others were never constructed, but they did revert naturally back to wetland areas of different, sizes and types. Lucas Environmental went out with myself and with Goddard and went through the different types of areas, both the constructed areas and the areas that kind of reverted to wetlands. And Lucas provided a review, which was the commission went over briefly at the last hearing. And the general findings from Lucas, and Joe, you can jump in if I'm not summarizing this well, was basically that the areas that were identified by Goddard did revert back to wetlands, and that it may be more destructive at this point to try to go in and redo it, given that we have some nice wetland areas at this point. Lucas did suggest that Goddard provide some habitat enhancement that the applicant had promised, and that some of the plantings that were promised get installed for species diversity, as well as completing invasive species monitoring. So that being said, the only items that were kind of left unturned at the last meeting, and that's why I wanted to reschedule this as a discussion for the commission, is there are two areas where the applicant was supposed to mitigate for bank and land underwater by daylighting culverts. These areas are M5 and M6. So Lucas took a look at both M5 and M6. Actually, I got my eyes on M5, but not M6. And kind of advised on the feasibility of having the applicant kind of daylight and revert these culverts. So the questions before the commission tonight are, number one, does the commission feel that the applicant needs to provide mitigation, kind of apples to apples, 1-to-1 per the original order? And number two, if so, how would you like that to be accomplished? And or is there a mixed scenario that you would accept? I will say.
Sorry, I just want to make sure Joe explains to the commission what he saw, just so that before the commission discusses it, Kim, if Joe could explain what he saw at M5 and M6, just so they understand the existing.
Yeah, can I, thank you very much. Can we hold off for a second until Kim is finished, please? And then I'll open it up to comments from Goddard. Thank you. Go ahead, Kim.
Thanks, Jeff. So M5, based on our observations, is quite a bit of a rocky, steep area. And it does have some invasive species present. Construction in that area would be somewhat difficult. And, the quality of what we get is a little bit in question. M6 is seems to be a better candidate for daylighting and restoration. It's kind of part of this larger system where the culvert is running underground through these small farm roads and then daylighting into small ponded areas. So daylighting in this area would create some LUW, bank, and vegetated buffer area. So in conferring with Lucas and Joe, that would be our recommendation, is that M6 seems to be somewhat feasible and beneficial, but M5 may not be.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I got it. Did you have a comment?
So I just want to make sure that Joe clarifies what he saw at M6, because the key to M6 is understanding what's up gradient of it, what's feeding the wetland below M6. Where does water come from and where does it go to? So we have a wetland system in this plan here. You can see, and I'll explain it, and then I'd like Joe just to confirm that this is kind of what he saw. Is you have a wetland system with a bunch of these drainage ponds / ditches that all line up together, and then there's a small blue circle just to the right of M6. You'll see the little blue circle there. Mm-hmm. That area is a deep hole, and just downgrading of that blue circle between the blues is a cart path that is 6 to 7 to 8 feet above the bottom of the wetland in that little blue circle. That blue circle, the cart path is 8 feet above it, give or take, maybe 6, but it's 6 to 8 feet above. When you go to the down gradient side of that cart path, you go into a swale that drops down no more than 4 feet. So we have a grade change that's significant in the sense of the area between these two blue areas, the blue circle and that blue long linear blue section to the down gradient end of M6. Again, water's going from the bottom right to the top left. The gradient is pretty stark, because we have a low spot, and then we have M6 is up here, and then eventually it gets down low again. So you end up with this. We think we're going to have to carve out a massive amount of land to create this, because we're going to be digging down so deep to find this pipe where we can't even find the outlet. And Joe and I walked this. We couldn't find where it daylights. It just disappears. We found a structure with a manhole, but even in the middle of M6, it's like 4 feet down. So it's difficult to understand how we could create this stream as they show it without making a very wide trench and steep slopes on both sides to create this connection in this area that's already vegetated on both sides with native vegetation is definitely continued to rebound. So that's the condition of M6. And again, I'd like Joe to confirm what he saw the area, particularly upgraded of M6, how deep that area is. And
Okay, we got it.
Look at it. But that's, I just want to make sure that's context.
Got it. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. Joe, so is that kind of your assessment of?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate representation. I mean, that area I think was seemed like the better option potentially for putting in a stream channel. There is that buried pipe with some manholes, which would probably require quite a deep excavation and a fairly wide area to have stable slopes. So those were good points that were raised. Just want to note, as far as between those two areas, as far as the one that might have more potential for success would be M6, but it does have some downside also, as was discussed. And the vegetation currently is shrub vegetation. It's upland shrub. There are some invasives in there, so potentially that area could be enhanced and have some invasives management done possibly in lieu of a stream channel creation, if that was something that the commission would consider also.
So Joe, how much of an effort would it be to, daylight this culvert and do the work that, we need to do, or that we're proposing here?
Well, as was mentioned by Andrew, I don't know that they know the bottom elevation of that, where that culvert is. It seems to be fairly deep. I think we would need maybe some additional information on how deep that channel would have to be created and how wide of an area would need to be excavated to create that.
Mm-hmm.
Through the chair, Eric Swinson from Legacy Farms.
Yes, go ahead, Eric.
I just want to also add additional comment. I believe that's on one of the trail paths, if I'm not mistaken. So we would be digging an open stream through one of the paths for the trail.
Okay.
Well, clarification, it's actually between two trail paths. It was designed to actually daylight a stream between two trail paths. So the upgradient trail path stays in place. So we'd be excavating on the other side of the trail path, cutting down to try to get to the pipe, creating a steep stream there. So you'd end up with a cliff it's a steep drop on both sides, at least on the upgrading side, I should say. And on the downgrading side, it's shallow because it's not been dug out. And then the stream section was supposed to end at the next old cart path at the bottom end of M6. So it was kind of confusing what the goal was. It wasn't like a complete daylighting of the whole section. It was actually just daylighting the section between the cart paths. So, I don't know if you circulated what submitted to you about what we're proposing, in the sense of we want to do invasive species management in the areas around the wetland mitigation areas that we're going to have to do that need to be monitored to confirm their wetlands still. So M2, M3, M1. We did put together, Jeff, a protocol. And again, I think Kim wants to clarify this M5, M6 first, but before we jump into that, but we do have proposals to you about making sure that we're going to plant all the plantings. We're taking the plantings from M6 and we're going to put them, I think we're putting M6 plantings or M5 plantings at M2 where we have stream enhancement. So we have an existing stream, we're enhancing at M2. And typically when you cross a stream, the bank impacts for this project were related to a roadway crossing. Typically you can't mitigate bank impacts. On this site, they were trying to do that. We do have enhancements that are proposed at M2. So there is some bank enhancement part of our proposal that will be occurring.
So what is
Chair?
yes, go ahead, Kim, sorry.
Just a curiosity question for Goddard. Have the conditions at the site at M6 changed since the original design proposal was put together?
I don't believe so. When I look at the plans and I walk the area, I think it was, they were looking for areas that they could possibly do something. They're like, oh, let's try to do something here. And they put it on a plan without thinking about the feasibility of how much excavation, how much grading, and how it would work with the cart paths and everything else. I think it was a little bit, there might have been just some forethought wasn't quite there, I think, for some of the aspects of what was happening. And maybe they didn't shoot the grades to think about how much of a cut it would be. But I mean, it's possible to do M6. It's possible. It's going to be a big ditch. It's going to be a very long ditch. We're going to have probably a 30 to 50 foot wide swath work area to be able to excavate out and down. We're going to have to haul out material just to get down to where we need to be. So it's possible. It's just a question of how much effort we're going to be putting in there. I
don't think that makes sense in my mind. If it's going to be that much disturbance, in that area, I'm not sure that makes sense. So.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Melissa.
Do we know what the condition of that pipe is? Has there been any, I mean, I know you said it's hard to get down to, but there's a manhole. Do we know if it's in good shape? Could it potentially collapse sometime soon and disconnect these wetlands?
I don't know the exact condition of it. It's clear that there's some ponding that occurs in that depression, but it's not significant. So I think the pipe is draining. I think maybe it's collapsed further down, but it still drains. And so there's nothing that we can tell that shows that there's a problem with it at the moment. It's a concrete masonry 12-inch pipe. I can dig up a photo if you want, but I don't have it handy.
I guess what would that, if it does fully collapse, or do we know how big it is? Capacity.
It's about a 12-inch pipe right now. I know that. Let me see if I can find a photo for you.
I wonder if it were to collapse or get completely clogged, what kind of impacts would that have on, the systems there?
It wouldn't back up the system much because the next wetland above it, I guess in this blue circle here, honestly, these are really kind of all connected. They kind of spill into each other. The blue circle is kind of connected to that next oval, and it's a spillway drops down. So you might fill up this wetland here, but it's just an herbaceous wetland with vegetation around the crown of this pit. And then it would just spill over over the cart path if it backed up. So I don't think it wouldn't back up or impact other wetlands upgrading of it.
Through the chair, I can also mention one other thing.
Yes, go ahead, Eric.
This is also at a high point to the site. So where M6 is, there's a drainage that goes one way and drainage that goes the other way towards M2. So, it is at a high point. And a lot of these culverts were related to moving water throughout the site for Legacy Farms nursery operations. So there are many culverts on site currently that are not even used anymore. And it is an extensive system of culvert pipes that was there previously. So, this may be connected to nothing, or it may just serve as an overflow sometimes when that Legacy wanted to move water from one location to another.
Yeah. No, I know. We saw that on Legacy Farm South too. So
I have a photo of that culvert if you want to see it, Jeff.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So here's what it looks like. So this is that little wetland. This is the pipe right here. And this is the cart path up here. So you can see how big of a drop it is. So, and then the other side, again, Joe can confirm this, the other side of this cart path only drops down 4 feet at most. So you can
Okay.
see, you have to go, we're talking at least a 4-foot excavation to get to a stream bottom that would drain this, unless you filled this wetland up, which this is a clearly dug out area. But then you're talking about impacting delineated wetlands. So we don't want to touch that either. So it's this weird situation where in some ways it might have been nice to say, can we just fix the wetland that was dug out and then create a better hydrological path connection that's actually a natural hydrologic connection elevation versus this dugout section. So this is what it looks like.
Okay, no, that's helpful. Thank you. So I hate to kick the can
Yeah.
down the road again on this one, Kim, but maybe we should, kind of regroup and think about this a little bit more.
Again, to the chair, Kim, has Kim shared with you our mitigation protocol that we submitted?
Yes, yep, that's in the
Okay.
file.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I haven't gone, I kind of perused it. I didn't go through it in a lot of detail. But I
That's fine.
will go through that in more detail.
It was our attempt to answer Joe's questions, and we expect the commission and Joe to have more comments on it. But we think it's a starting point to show how we can provide the mitigation that's necessary for compliance of the major wetland impacts. Again, usually you were going to restore wetlands here. We've done that. We're going to enhance them. We're going to do that. The only thing that we're short on is recreation of new bank. That's
Right,
and
which
land
is-
under water bodies, which is usually not mitigated often.
Yep, no, we understand. And, what we were looking to do was really, if there was an opportunity on site to mitigate some of the bank disturbance and land underwater, that, is there the potential to do that? So I think it's going to just take I think we should regroup and let us put our heads together one more time on this. And I think we have time. This has been in the wings for quite a while now, so I don't think another few weeks is going to make a big difference. Kim, does that make sense? Joe?
Yeah, I would just add that eventually we're probably going to be looking for Goddard to propose invasive species management plans specific to each mitigation area, habitat enhancement proposals specific for each area. And then I know we talked about, moving the plantings that were proposed for M5 and M6 to different areas. So I guess, getting the specific species and quantities. Is that already in there?
So to the chair, yeah, and Kim. So we propose wetland mitigation in the sense of we're going to be doing plantings and invasive species management at M2 and M5. These are the big wetland replication areas that were supposed to be built. They're now wetlands. We're going to put every single planting that was proposed for wetland mitigation back there. We're going to do invasive species management in both of those areas and in M1, which was built but never really monitored for invasive species. We're going to provide you with a delineation of all the wetlands in these areas so that you can confirm, after Joe looks at the delineation, that all wetlands have been mitigated and have been overly mitigated by the area. We're going to do 2 years of monitoring. We're going to provide every single wildlife habitat feature that was posed. We're just relocating some of them because we don't want to go into the woods with a machine to auger in a snag. Why not auger a snag next to one of the cart paths where we can easily get a little auger, put a snag piece in place. We're going to get all the wood boxes, all the bat boxes, all the floats for the turtles in. That's all in our protocol. So I'd encourage the commission to look at that protocol because there's a lot there that the applicant is proposing to make sure that these areas are functionally the same, although they may look a little different. The only impacts that we're short on is land under water bodies and bank. And that's only for the North Road. The South Road, we already mitigated the bank in M1. So, and land under water bodies in M1. So we're talking about the roadway crossing at M2. It was an existing crossing. We widened it out. We impacted land under water bodies and bank, and we're short on replicating that. But our protocol shows that we're doing every single wildlife habitat feature that was originally proposed. We're doing them. We're just relocating them because some of them access-wise, it's just not feasible. But every feature will be on this property in an area that will be suitable. We are specifying that a wildlife biologist place them because we want to make sure they're done right. So that's what's in the protocol. So look at it and comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah,
the
through the
commission?
chair, this is Ed. I just have one question.
Yes, Ed, go ahead.
In the case of a collapse of that culvert at some future date, what would be the consequence?
So as you saw in that photo, if that pipe collapsed, that wetland would flood up in elevation. Now, if the upgradient end of that wetland is a drop in, so the water is here, it drops into that pit, and then it goes into the pipe. So it drops in and then into the pipe. So if that pipe collapsed, the only wetland that would flood at a different elevation than the existing conditions would be that artificial pit, which is roughly 15 by 15, maybe 20 by 20. But it's a pit that's below the elevation of all the surrounding ground. So it would just flood up, probably flood side to side a little bit, and then go over the cart path.
And the pit was the area in the picture that you showed us, correct?
Yep.
Okay, are there any other questions, comments from the commission? Okay, so we'll continue this out. Maybe we'll push it out to April 11th. That'll give us, adequate time to, for everyone on the commission to go through the comments and for us to regroup. And we don't need to vote on it, but appreciate the background there.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, so 0 Hayden Row, this is another work session item. Connolly Farms, a request for minor modification.
So Mark Arnold is here again on behalf of the applicant. Craig Nation is also on the call. So this is the Connolly Farms subdivision, and we've built the replication area that was proposed to be built inside this upland meadow, which is probably familiar with this meadow along Hayden Row, right near College Street. And so on the left side here, the pink area, that area has been built. We graded, we cut out the subgrade, brought it down to subgrade, down to strong redoxic morphic features with good groundwater indications, took the wetland impact soils, brought it in, spread it out, and this area is basically ready to be planted this spring. But part of our consideration for this planting area is we're looking at it and we're wondering if it's better to take the plantings in the same quantities and make upland buffer zone rather than plant a wet meadow. We already have wetto in this site, in this field that's been there since the fields were created, and it's been maintained by them, mowing those fields annually. And so we just wanted to bring to the commission the option of planting the trees and shrubs, basically changing the species, but same quantities, and creating more buffer zone in your 50-foot buffer zone and a little bit outside that. That's that area on the right side of this plan. So you still get the same amount of tree canopy, same canopy and shrubs. You just keep the wet meadow and you expand the wet meadow by the wetland replication area, and you keep upland meadow as well as part of the whole habitat for this area. So the key reasons why we want to do this is because we want to maintain the meadow aesthetics. We think keeping a wet meadow and an upland meadow is really better than creating this upland forested meadow that's going to be kind of early successional in the middle of an upland meadow, or on the edge of it, I should say. So that's kind of the reasoning why. We looked at soils, everything checks out. We have good groundwater, we've got good soils. The plants are suitable for planting in the upland. We have species listed in our submittal, and that's the general proposal. I can get into more than nuts and bolts if needed, but basically same planting quantities. We just think that it's better to add some more forested upper buffer zone than to put a forested wetland next to a wetland meadow, and we can just have more wetland meadow, which is a unique habitat in Massachusetts.
Okay, so the trees and shrubs that were proposed to be planted in the original location will be moved to this new location in the same quantity?
The same quantity. We're changing the species to upland species. Some
Yeah.
are wet, some are like facultative, so they're right on the wet up side, but we're changing them to oaks and red maples and sweet pear bush and witch hazel. I'm blanking out on, we had 3 different shrubs and trees, if I remember correctly.
And then what would be planted in the original location?
It would just be seeded with a wetland seed mix, so that way you get a wetland meadow that's similar to what's next to it. So if you look at photo 1, Kim, there, you can see on the left side of that photo 1 is the wet meadow, and our replication area would just be a continuation of that wet meadow, and then it would transition into upland meadow, and then further to the left of this photo here, you get additional buffer zone forest to a forested BVW.
And then that would be mowed once a year? Is that what was proposed?
Exactly. Yep. We're going to mow it once per year. That's what the nations are going to commit to. We're going to put that in the HOA as a requirement, so that way the meadow will be maintained, so that way the habitat stays there.
Okay, I'll open it up to the commission members for discussion.
I wonder if Joe or Kim have any thoughts on the habitat, changing the habitat value in those areas.
All right, I guess I'll take a stab at it.
Or if you've had time to look at it, I don't know.
No, I did. Wet meadows, a lot of times all they need is seeding to kind of revert back to their vegetation. When they, in my career in the private sector, I did not do a lot of revegetation of wet meadows, to be perfectly honest. So there may be more of a net benefit potentially for the commission to get more of a vegetated buffer. However, my experience with wetland replication is that they are more successful when they are, generally speaking, planted. So kind of on the fence about it.
Through the chair.
Yes, Joe.
Yeah, I've seen a number of instances where seeding with a herbaceous wet mix for a wet meadow establishment works out just fine if you have the right hydrology. And if you've got that area surrounded by existing wet meadow, apparently, I've been to the site on one occasion. I'm not super familiar with it, but I would think that that could be pretty easily restored as wet meadow. I just wasn't sure the requirement for that wet meadow replication area, was that required based on wetlands impacts, or and now if that was the case, are they not creating wetland with the new proposal?
So to answer that question, Joe, so the wetland replication area was proposed for wetland impacts. It was a forested wetland that we impacted. So we were replicating a forested wetland as you typically would, but instead of going into an upland forest and cutting down mature upland trees, we were asked to put the wetland replication area in the field, so that way the disturbance level was minimal. We took upland meadow, and we made it into a wetland replication area. And then we were going to plant trees and shrubs like you normally do for a wetland replication area. So that was basically standard procedure for wetland replication, except we didn't put it next to the crossing because we were told, why go in there and cut down the beautiful upland oaks and clear out all the nice sweet pear bush in their 50-foot buffer zone when there's a field that's been disturbed before and just has herbaceous layer? Why don't we do that for grading instead? And so that was why we put the replication area where we did. So that's the methodology behind it. So I think in the standpoint, the question of the commission is the wetland in mitigation satisfactory to your regulations in regards to what you're replicating versus what was impacted versus the net benefit of the additional buffer zone to a forested BVW. I think it is because we're getting more forested BVW with more forested buffer zone. Therefore, the forested wetland is going to be better off. The wet meadow will still be better off because it's still functionally the same.
Right, so
Through
you're
the
still, I'm sorry, through the chair. So you're still replicating the required area. It's just not in-kind replication for the wetland, but you would then do the forested element as an upland enhancement.
Correct. We've already done the wetland replication area as shown in the photos that Kim had on the screen. We've already excavated out and brought the soils in. It's ready to be, I think it's been seeded, and we're going to double check that this spring, make sure it comes in right. But it's going to be monitored just like a wetland replication area, and then we'll have a buffer zone restoration. It'll be monitored exactly the same you would do a buffer zone restoration area in Hopkinton.
Okay.
So you're getting all your wetland area impacts replicated at your 1 to 1.5, I think, or is it 2 to 1? I forget the numbers, but you have 4,200 square feet of wetland replication here.
Okay, I just wasn't clear on that, so that helps. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with that. I'm not sure with the road salt coming off of Hayden Road there. The shrubs and the trees, could be affected by that. I don't know. So they might thrive a little bit better, up in the proposed area. And then we would still have the wet meadow area that's going to be seeded. So, I think I'm fine with it. I would just, open up to the other commission members and whether they're comfortable with it.
This Jim, I'm comfortable with it.
Melissa, Carrie?
Yeah, I think I'm okay with it as well.
Janine?
Yeah, I'm good.
Ted? Ed?
Yeah, I'm fine. I was holding off for a question that has nothing to do with this one, but
And I'm okay with it.
Okay, go ahead, Ted.
I was just curious. I don't remember if we talked about it before. Are the billboards staying?
They are staying, yes.
Oh, good. Thanks.
That was the $1 million question, Ted.
Yeah, well, there they are on the plans, and they look beautiful next to a restored wetland meadow. So I'm happy to hear they're staying.
Yes, especially when the billboard itself is like peeling off, and
yeah,
that looks
they're
really nice.
just beautiful. Anyway.
Okay, so can I get a motion to approve the minor modification request for Connolly Farms?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, we'll do the roll call vote. Melissa?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
Janine?
Aye.
Ted?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Yep, you too. Okay, so moving along to Turkey Ridge Estates, 52 Cedar Street, 35 Lincoln Street. We're under a cease and desist, and we had some issues at the site today. Kim, did you want to give us a rundown?
You bet. Just pulling it up here. All right. Oh, you know what? That's not gonna work. Bear with me for a second. My computer is being really slow trying to load this stuff.
No problem. Take your time.
Oh, goodness. All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
All right. I might just have to present like this if that's okay. All right. So just getting everybody grounded. This is a general map of the site. In general, it's a steeply sloping site that slopes down towards the Sudbury River and some associated riverfront area and bordering vegetated wetlands. In general, you see the purple arrows indicating the flow. The stormwater infrastructure at the site is a swale, which moves into two large infiltration basins, which are designed to hold the majority of the site stormwater. As you'll recall, we had an original violation in December in which a plume of silty water made its way down the slope and into the BVW here in this location, generally the low spot associated with this basin. These basins are named Basin 16 and Basin 20. I don't know why they're not 1 and 2, but those are what we're referring to when we say 16 and 20. So since the last update, I've done a number of site inspections. So I'm going to kind of show you the improvements at the site. So this is Basin 20. This was back in February, and then again on March. Much more of the grading was completed, and final loam was put down along with the emergency outflow. And the other side of Basin 20, they have jute matting down, and then here's that riprap overflow you're seeing there. This is the other basin, so the comparison of January 26th to March 9th. You can see there's a check dam in the foreground. This is kind of the end of the swale. The applicant installed and maintained erosion controls and also placed mulch over the majority of the site. So here's that swale, final grades without loam with check dams, and then the kind of the edge of this is the beginning or the towards Lincoln Street, and then this is the terminus of the swale. And then here's just some photos of erosion controls being installed and maintained at the site. And then the erosion control, the retaining walls which support the infiltration basins had been constructed. So today, as you're aware, we had a deluge of rain in Hopkinton. And so we had two spots where we had a turbid discharge again. So again, at the location of the original violation, and then at a new location, which is kind of the low spot associated with Basin 16 over here. So myself and Anna were out at the site at about 9 a.m. this morning. So here's some photos of the upper basin getting pretty full. And the stormwater, the detained water had started to kind of weep out of the basin and was headed down the erosion controls. The applicant was attempting to manage the water by pumping it from one basin to the other. So here is Basin 20. As you can see, Basin 20 is now almost fully constructed and then loamed and lined with jute matting. There's getting pumped into, and then here's the outflow, the breakout on the opposite side of Basin 20 at about 9 a.m. So Beta was gracious enough to go out to the site again today at about 11 a.m. And then here's that same Basin 16. I believe this is breakout flow. And as you can see, it's turbid water and it's overtopping the silt fence. And so here's that discharge point to riverfront area. And then Basin 20 at 11 a.m. This is from the overflow. And as you can see, there's that original plume area breaking through the erosion controls and spilling out. And there's Ed. And here are just some more photos of the area. So this is the wet area. As you can see, it's the sediment plume in it as well. This backside of Basin 20 is starting to get eroded into a bit of a channel. So that may be something that we need to address as well at some point. The contractor did reach out to me at about 2 p.m. to let me know that the situation was under control. And these are photos provided by him. So the backside of Basin 16 had that blowout. So they put riprap stones along it and made some additional check dams with straw wattles. And then here's kind of the 2 p.m. update on Basin 20. So lots of progress. Unfortunately, the site was still overwhelmed today. But definitely, you know, it's a flip up. It's a two-sided coin.
Mhm. Okay, thank you for that overview, Kim. And thank you for going out to the site today, to you and Anna. And I'll open it up to comments from the commission.
Hi, this is Jim. I guess that maybe I'll start it. It appears, amongst the things that you described, Kim, it appears that the so-called erosion control, which includes shredded mulch on some embankments, fabric on some embankments, is not complete. It looks to me like there's mulch thrown down, but it's just not covering the entire area it's supposed to. And the roads into the site are not stabilized at all. So they're wet, they're muddy, they're flowing off into the other areas of the site. And, you know, the weather stinks, but some of us have had projects with weather like this and you have to adapt. And I'll just reiterate my previous comment that fines, we should not just hold these fines in abeyance, but we should actually impose fines and collect them. And I haven't gone through and calculated what those would be, but it has been a very long time. It's unfortunate the weather's been the way it is, but it's not an excuse, in my opinion, for not having done what needed to be done a long time ago. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Jim.
Through the chair,
This is Ed.
Oh,
Yes, go ahead, Ed.
So, besides being utterly disappointed, when we got there, the pump that was being used to pump the first basin had died, and there was no spare. There was no backup plan. So that basin was filling up and overflowing, and the other basin, which was getting empty, was apparently getting empty out to the bottom of the wall. Again, I am not a civil engineer, but the water that was coming out from the bottom of that wall was coming from somewhere. Whether it was groundwater that didn't have any place to go, I just question the efficacy of the engineering. And to answer Jim's question, right now we're looking at $32,600, I believe. And that doesn't include whatever fines might be imposed from today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Ted?
yeah, Kim, I have a question. In prepping for the meeting, I saw an email exchange between you and the applicant that I think predates what happened today. And it had to do with, and help me if I misread it, if it had to do with pumping water out of a bin and into the resource area. The water was clear. It was also creating channeling. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah, so I believe it was March 9th. On the March 9th visit that I went out to, I discovered that the applicant was dewatering this basin over the limits of the erosion control. It was in a dirt bag, which is like a filter containment bag. So the water that was discharging was running clear. But, you know, I stopped them immediately and had to talk about, you know, not doing anything beyond the limits of work. So that was definitely a disappointing moment. I elected not to fine at that point because the discharge was clear, but yeah, that was another event that happened about a week ago that I
Right.
wish hadn't have happened. Yeah.
And that, again, our last meeting, we said, we'll hold fines in abeyance and please no more problems. So even if today's issues didn't happen, we did have more problems. So I think I'm with Jim. I'm with Ed. I was interested in finding our last meeting, but went with the group. I think creating fines and then not asking people to pay them gives them liberty to say, all right, what I'm doing is the right way to do things. So I worry about that.
So for clarification, Kim, the fines, thank you, Ted. The fines to date, excluding, what happened today, is 31,800. Is that correct? The original 29,100 and then 2,700. The
I
second
believe that
time.
is correct. Let me just pull it up right now. So yeah, I have 29,100 and 2,700.
Okay. So Carrie, Janine, Melissa, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I support issuing the fines. It's a difficult site. We all knew it was a difficult site. The applicant knew it was a difficult site, but proceeded to develop it anyway. So I would have expected a high level of care and diligence, knowing it was a difficult site, and it doesn't seem like that's happening. So I support fines.
All right, thank you.
I would just say that in addition to fines, I would want to know, or I would suggest, I think, that there be a third party SWIP inspector provided for the site at the contractor's expense, the developer's expense, because I think it's pretty obvious that they're not catching these things, pumping outside of the erosion controls, creating channels, things like this. They don't have the right qualifications of people on site to keep it under control. So I think that would be something I would want to see.
I think that makes sense.
Yes.
Carrie?
I think the fine should be imposed. I really do question the engineering at this point, especially, well, I just question that, and I think we need to look at if there's any kind of mitigation that will need to be done as a result of what happened today, in addition to the fines.
Through the chair.
Yes. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, this is Andrew Tebow with Goddard Consulting. I wanted to give a quick update from Goddard's end. As this was all going on today, we received a call from the applicant kind of updating us. Goddard's going out first thing tomorrow morning to inspect the site. This is certainly a top priority tomorrow, and you guys will have an updated kind of site conditions, timestamp photographs, measurements of anything that happened today, and a plan to kind of mitigate this as soon as possible. So I understand the site was overwhelmed today. From our perspective, we were called on right away. We're going to be there first thing tomorrow, and the mitigation is certainly going to be happening in a timely manner. The applicant is certainly on that, and we are as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I think
Chair, I have a
just
quick
kind of my
question.
point is I'd
I'm
rather, sorry. It's great that Goddard's coming on for mitigation. They came on for mitigation last time. Can we be a little more proactive? And I mean, we all knew the storm was coming. My kids, got school canceled last night. Everybody's been watching it for, a couple of days. So it's not really a surprise event.
Jeff, can I just add something? Ted, you want to go and then I'll go?
I had a question first. Melissa, I'm sorry. I thought you were finished. I didn't mean to speak over you.
It's okay.
Kim, the silted water, it's running into the Sudbury River. Is that true?
I believe it stopped short of the Sudbury River was the report that I got from Bob from Beta.
The Sudbury River is the border with
close,
Southborough, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Have we heard anything from Southborough about this site?
I haven't, but you know what? I can reach out to them. I would be surprised if it didn't make it to the river.
Okay, I mean, here we are again. Earlier it was with Ashland, and now perhaps work in our town is impacting Southborough as well. It's disappointing.
Yep, I agree.
Jeff,
Yes, Jim, sorry, go ahead.
that's okay. I guess I'll add, you know, that the reason for the fines are meant to be deterrents for the future. And if all we ever do is hold fines in abeyance, I'm not sure that every developer and every builder is going to, you know, take things as seriously as they need to, and just, you know, realize, and they'll think, oh, we'll just hold it in abeyance and we'll fix, so we don't need to be proactive. And I think that's a mistake. We need people to be proactive. And I think there is some serious failure in the engineering design here, and in the work sequence, and in the work plan, and how things have proceeded. So that's it again.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, Jim. And, you know, just to clarify, I'm in agreement at this point, you know, with assessing the fines. We've kind of given the applicant, you know, 2 chances. So it's kind of like, you know, the third strike, you're out here, or the 4th strike. But having said that, you know, they have been proactive. It just hasn't been enough, you know, and if the phasing plan was followed, you know, initially, then we probably wouldn't be in this situation. But I guess at this point, is there so the total amount of fines to date, excluding today, are 31,800. So I guess, is there a motion to issue the fines? I would request an amount, and then I agree with Melissa and Kerry. I think a third-party SWIP inspector that's on site consistently, as opposed to just, you know, when there's a problem, makes sense. So is there someone who's wants to make a motion?
Through the chair, this is Ed. I'll make the motion. But I really think that we need an engineering review where fluids were coming through at the base of that dam. There's a reason for that, and it needs to be understood why that was happening. And whatever the sum was you mentioned, 31,800, I believe, that is what I will move.
And then the third-party SWIP inspector on site. That part of your motion, Ed?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll move for third-party SWIP inspector.
Do we have a second?
This is Ted. I'll second.
All right, and we'll do the roll call vote. Melissa?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
Neen?
Aye.
Ted?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Jeff is an aye. Okay. Thank you, folks, and let's try to
And
get.
we'll get a report. We'll see some information after Goddard's inspection tomorrow. And Beta will be going with Goddard, or Tim will be going with Goddard, or anybody going with Goddard tomorrow?
My plan was to re-inspect tomorrow. I'm not sure if
great.
my schedule is going to line up with Goddard, but my plan is to
that's fine.
re-inspect.
Okay,
And I just want the commission to be aware, I'm not, the third-party inspector may be somebody other than Beta.
Well, that would
But
be,
we'll get somebody on it.
right. By definition, it would be somebody else.
Well, Beta works for the town, Jim, so they would be somebody who could potentially do the third-party inspection, but we might have a new contractor on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Through the chair.
Yes, Ted.
And Kim, you'll tally fines from today's event?
If that is what you would like me to do, for sure.
I certainly would. I wonder if the commission is interested in considering fines for the clear water pump, or if we should go with Kim's recommendation of leaving that unfined.
I think, you know, it's, you know, Typically, we defer to Kim's judgment, so I think it makes sense to continue that and just have her tally up the fines for today's event. That makes sense to everyone.
That was a good point though, Ted. I got so wrapped up in what happened today that I forgot to add it to the presentation, but
Oh, no.
you're right.
Don't take anything I said as a critique in any way.
Okay, we have a question from the audience. Kyle Lucier.
Hi, this is actually Courtney Lucier.
Oh, hi, Courtney.
Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening. So, just so everyone knows, I own the land and am developing this land, and I usually sit very quietly and absolutely take in everything you all have to say. And I appreciate your time and the hard work that you all do for the town. But they're based on the fines that were just issued, I just have a couple of things I'd like to point out. And
Okay.
we accept the fines and we understand your concerns, but I do believe there are some misconceptions you want to clear up. Whether you signed the fines or not, I want to be just crystal clear that there's never for one moment been a lack of effort on our end. So if those fines were issued or they weren't, it is impossible to make us work harder on this property. And I take exception to some of the words used, taking liberties. The reason why Shane is not on this call right now is because he is up to his knees in snow and mud and water down there with his crew. At what time is it, trying to work on this property, as he has been since the day that you guys came on him and we've had issues. There hasn't been a moment that we haven't been down there 6 days a week, morning, noon, and night. Can be freezing temperatures, wet, dry, what have you. We're trying our hardest. Care and diligence. I mean, I couldn't care more. I'm a resident here and I live on this property. So I'm here in the morning. I take everything you guys have to say to heart. My neighbors are affected by this. My family's affected by this. There is absolutely no lack of care and no lack of diligence from this end. And although there were some breaches and things have happened, I can assure you that on this end, we are doing the absolute best we possibly can do. Goddard's working hard. We're taking all the precautions we possibly can at this point, and we're taking it very seriously. And it's difficult. It's difficult to sometimes listen. There's not a lack of effort. So by issuing the fines, and again, we accept them. We understand where you're coming from, but please know that you could have issued more. We cannot work harder. This is not making us work harder or less hard. We are doing everything we can, and I don't know if that's being translated to everybody on the board. So I'd like to just point that out. There could be just no more that we possibly could do at this point. We're doing everything we can. We're taking all the feedback that we can, and we're trying our absolute hardest, morning, noon, and night, and at the expense of everything we possibly can. So I just want to be that crystal clear with that. And we also, I know that Jim mentioned, you can't use weather as an excuse. I don't think anybody on my team has used the weather we've been absolutely dealt a terrible hand since the beginning of the year with the weather, and nobody on my team has used it as an excuse. It's been a factor, certainly, but we haven't leaned on it. We haven't, whined about it. It has not been an excuse at all. We've worked with it. And I just want to be clear on some of those things. I'm not sure how well those things are being translated. It seems like you guys are getting an idea that we're taking it easy, not taking it seriously, and it couldn't be further from the truth. So just wanted to step in and point that out to you guys. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes, Jim.
Since you mentioned my name, I recognize that you're working hard. You've been working hard. My issue is with coming from the very beginning. Developers need to know the conditions you're working in. They need to know that the engineering is sound, and if it isn't, it needs to be changed at the moment. But I recognize that you guys are working very hard, but it doesn't resolve the original issues. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. I think we can move on at this point unless there's any final comments.
Through the chair, if I may add one before we close this thing out.
Yep.
I certainly agree with everything's been said. From Goddard's end, I'm seeing consistent communication. Every one of our site visits, people are there. In my experience to date on these projects, when I see all fines released at once, I feel that's typically a time where there's negligence on the workers' parts, on the landowner or something like that. And I don't think that's what's happening here. I certainly understand the commission's been patient, and I know Goddard appreciates that from our side. I know the applicant does as well. It's one of those things now that I see it's consistent work. They were there today while they were getting overwhelmed trying to make things happen. In my opinion, I don't typically see all the fines released at once, unless there is some negligence on the side. And I haven't felt that that's there. So I wanted to voice that kind of from Goddard's end from when we've been on site. So I appreciate that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Also, this is Shane. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Shane.
Yeah, sorry. I am at the site. I'm just trying to chime in. I'm listening. We accept your fines. You guys have to do what you have to do. Like Courtney said, we've been here 36 straight hours preparing for the storm and trying to manage this thing. So definitely not a lack of effort here. And yes, it was our fault from the beginning. The first contractor we hired just wasn't qualified, didn't follow the regulations, and we started in April. I think it was actually sooner than that. I think it was March. And it was between then and December 29th that we worked and opened this site up. Not one member of the Conservation Commission came out during those 8-9 months. The site just got a little bit too further than it should. I wish it was caught sooner. But I can tell you right now, since it was, since you guys, when you did come out, we've done, amazing strides to make this right. I just wanted to point that out. That I just wish we had some, yes, we are new at this and we're trying our best. I just wish we had some communication with you guys a little bit earlier and had some on-site meetings the first 8 months of construction, because I think we could have really avoided a lot of this. But yeah, that's all I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah, through the chair.
Yes, Kim.
Yeah, we had our pre-construction meeting where we rocked the erosion control line and went through the whole order of conditions with myself and Beta. And then unfortunately I was on maternity leave. I wish I was out here a little earlier, but we had that gap. Yeah, by the time I got onto the site, it had been clear cut. So just wanted to clarify that.
And the phasing plan was in the, in the documents and in the order. So I guess, it's water under the bridge at this point. So there's not much we can do about what's already happened. Let's just try to be diligent about what's happening at the site going forward and try to get this squared away.
I can assure you we're all over it.
Okay, great.
Do whatever it takes.
Okay, thank you, Shane.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so we'll move along to the next agenda item, which is the remote versus in-person meetings. Kim, I think there's only 1 or 2 more months, right, that currently we're allowed to continue per the executive order.
Yeah, so technically we're going to be expiring soon, although every time the deadline came up, the state scrambled and continued it. Anna, do you know what the actual date is?
At this point, I believe it is the end of March, which is why we put it on this agenda, because we need to, yeah, I know there's rumors about extending it, but they usually wait till the last minute, and then that doesn't work for us with legal advertising deadlines. So right now we just have through the end of March. So just one more meeting remote. And then I think we kind of have to go back in person, at least for a meeting or two before, they vote to continue if that's possible.
Through the chair, this is Ed. You made a comment about us expiring soon. I have no plans to expire anytime soon. Thank you.
Sorry, guys.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then, maybe we do the next meeting remote and then go back to in-person meetings on the 11th. Kim, Anna, does that make sense?
Yeah, that seems like the path of least resistance right now.
Okay. And then, depending on whether the executive order is extended again and what the situation with, the COVID is and that type of thing, we can always, reconsider going back to remote at a later date. So, okay. So, Ann, if we, for the April 11th, we'll plan on doing that meeting live. And then,
It will be back at the senior center like normal.
okay. Is that, everyone good with that?
It'll be nice to see everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Ed, are you gonna bring bread?
I don't know, the last time I almost had to bring it home, so I don't know, maybe I'll do something different.
Okay.
Can you bring your kitty?
Sorry?
Bring your kitty cat?
Oh, I thought you said, oh, well, I don't know, he does not travel, I could bring the dog.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna miss seeing the cat on the.
He could be an associate member of the commission. Ed,
The cat or the dog?
both, you know? Okay, so were there any public forum requests, Kim?
There were not.
All right, any updates from any of the committees?
Nope.
Nothing, all right. I guess if there's a motion to adjourn
So moved.
and a second,
I'll second.
all right, and we'll do the roll call. Melissa,
Hi.
Carrie,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. All right, everyone.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Have a
Have a
great
great
night.
night, everybody.
Good night.
See you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Night.
Good night.